Welcome to the Force of Motivation podcast, a podcast that aims to delve into the motivation of everyday people and as well as those who have been really successful in their careers. This is our first episode and it's called The Art of Motivation. I'm your host, Nick Merry, and today I'm talking with Johnny Kovacevic, a successful artist who has left the corporate world to fulfill the dream of being a full-time artist. He's just coming off a very successful show at the Wentworth Galleries in Martin Place here in Sydney. Welcome, Johnny K.
Hey, Nick, thanks for having me.
All right, Johnny. So, John, how old were you when you picked up a paintbrush and knew you wanted to be an artist?
I think I was probably about 8 years old, and I remember telling my mum probably the words no mum wants to hear or parent. I want to be an artist, and obviously not knowing what that really means, and there'll be a lifelong struggle with money, having none. So probably about 8. I used to draw a lot, sketch a lot, spend most of my time alone, just getting lost in these creative, I guess, these ideas and these worlds you can create through art. So
awesome. And can you remember back then? I know it's a few years ago. What inspired you? Was there sort of a person who motivated you, or was it just a natural progression?
I think at that stage it's just a natural progression. It's just something I enjoyed doing, and I think there was some encouragement, I guess, from other kids at school. I could draw, a little bit better than most kids, and with that, realizing it did feel quite good. People praising you, going, "Oh, that's really good," and as I got older, some people would get me to do their front of their school books and buy me lunch. So it kind of started from there in an odd way, but yeah, that's how it kind of came together.
I think I'm pretty sure. I know we didn't go to school together. We were in completely different countries, but I'm pretty sure I had a version of you at school who did everyone's front of their homework books with all sorts of, whether it be dragons or bubble writing or whatever it was. We did pay them by giving them ice cream or a lolly or something from the canteen. So awesome. So how would you describe your journey into the art world so far?
Look, it's been a long journey. It's been an interesting journey, and I think for a lot of artists too, you realize that the art world, as great as it is also people running a business. Galleries are a business and do have clients, and they need to make money. So I think, that stepping ahead, being in the corporate world's allowed me to think like a business. Whilst I still enjoyed the art component, it does make you realize that the gallery's going to do so much, and it's really up to the artist to make sure that your work is quite good or has a certain market. So, but yeah, look, I've met some interesting people. I've been lucky. I've got a lot of good advice from people. And I think it's like anyone, it's whether you choose to take that advice or not. And thankfully, most of the advice has come from the right place. So I've kind of taken lots of stuff on board. But but it's been a long journey, and I've loved it. It's been great. So I can't complain.
That's great, man. Disclaimer here to those of you who are listening or watching this. Johnny and I have been working together for, I know I've got the grey hair, 14, 15 years, is it? Something like that. We've worked through the various companies that we've been involved in. How would you say your journey to art has differed from your journey in the corporate world and Motiforce, which was your last full-time job, as it were?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, when we worked in media sales, the companies are a lot bigger. And I think, obviously you're in the system, you need to make money and pay mortgage and rent and so forth. And I think moving to Motiforce as an agency where you kind of, I think personally build a more intimate relationship personally with people you work with. And although you need to make money, you also become more conscious that if you don't get clients and the business doesn't grow, people can't pay their mortgage or feed their kids. And which sounds a bit drastic, but I think we start to look. That's how I kind of saw it always, is that we need to grow the business, get clients on board, because it affects people, and you can see it directly. Whereas in a bigger company, I think I don't know, it's just a different makeup, a different structure to it. Whereas in the business, we all work very closely together on clients, so you do get to know people very well. So yeah, so I'm not sure if I'm answering that properly, but yeah, Motiforce has been a lot more interesting, I think, from that perspective, and maybe me being older as well. I'm more conscious of the reality that people need money to move forward. So
I mean, that's a very obvious motivation. Obviously, a lot of people are motivated by money, but also that's a very empathetic way of looking at things. That you're sort of driven by realizing that in a sales role, your impact in a business is also critical for those to sort of for the business to survive, and therefore those who are within the business to survive. So, but if we spin it back to art, how do you're a very personable guy. You're good, you're very good around people. You're
thanks.
one of the best client relationship people I've ever had to work with. And how how do you foresee the future as an artist being when it's fairly solitary, if I'm right in saying, you're pretty much doing it yourself. You're doing it for others, but how do you think you're going to adjust where you're not having those client relationships anymore? Obviously, you've been working with galleries, but how do you think you're going to cope with that?
Ask me 6 months. No, I don't. That's a good question. So I'll be calling you up more for beers. So
Yeah.
I, it is interesting. And look, I'm lucky that the galleries I do work with, I do have a very good relationship with. So I do get to speak to them a fair bit. And in some cases, I do get to take works that people have purchased to their homes. And that gives me a chance to kind of meet people who've bought a painting. So that's quite nice. But that's a good question, because I do like people. I do like isolation, but I also need my fix of human engagement. So I think that's going to be interesting. I think in 6 months, I mean, I might join some associations or do some charity work. I don't know, um, but it's a weird one, because even painting a lot, you realize the days vanish so fast, that you kind of get in the studio and then it's late at night. Like, wow, where did the time go? So yeah, that's a good question. I don't really know just yet, but I do know I will need to be part of something where I do get to speak to people, because I'm used to it and I like it. So
Well, and as you say, I mean, we'll always be catching up for whether it's beers or whether it's treks in the mountains, whatever it may be. We'll just need to make sure that you bring some warm clothes next time we go trekking. Um, so, as this podcast is pretty much all around sort of the motivation side of things, as I said, to me, you're one of the most motivated people I know. You can just keep going, regardless of what. Um, do you need to motivate yourself constantly, or do you feel like it's just inherently inbuilt in you?
uh, that's a good question. No, look, generally I'm self motivated, but definitely, you know, I'm a human being as well, and I do need to self motivate a fair bit. So I think I think, and this is something I read when I was quite young, and it said every day you have a choice to either have a really amazing day or a shitty crap day, and it's really up to you. Either way, it's up to you what happens. And I always thought the idea of having an amazing day every day, that sounds good to me. So I think I might go for that option. But and I think it's accepting that nothing's smooth, nothing runs smoothly ever, and accepting that that's just life.
Yeah.
And I think just taking the attitude of whatever happens, it's not personal, happens to everyone. Just try and choose to see the good side of that or something positive from it, um, and just keep smiling, really. Because otherwise, in the end, really, and I think that's why I'm always happy. It's how you let people affect you, and I think it's really, if someone you don't on the street, pulls in front of your car and you lose your shit, that means that person's kind of control it. Really, I always think that person now controls how you feel. And I go, I don't even know that person. Why would I get upset about that and hold on to it? So I think it just really depends how you see life or choose to see life. Because it's quite short. It's not like we live forever without getting too philosophical. And it's every day. Like, why wouldn't you choose to have a great day today? I just think it's so simple from how I see it anyway.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. There's actually a band that you and I have been to see, Suicidal Tendencies in Sydney. They have a phrase in a lyric in one of their songs: 99% of life is what you make of it. So if your
Yeah.
life sucks, you suck. Now, it's kind of a harsh, very harsh,
Yeah.
but it is, because at the end of the day, it is up to you how you look at things. And as I said, you've always brought a level of positivity to not only Motorforce as a business, or the companies you and I have worked for before, but obviously it's in your art as well. There's a lot of positivity there, the bright colors. Um, obviously there's a big thing right now about, if you get up early, if you're part of the 5 a.m. club, if you have your morning routine, if you have your evening routine, these are levels of success and they are proven to work. But do you set yourself up daily with sort of a routine? Is there something that fires you up every morning and that's the motivation switch for you? How does Johnny K start his day?
It's funny, isn't it? Because you read all
As
these
clean as possible.
books. It's, I don't know who does all this stuff. I mean, I've got some mates who are doing really well, and I'm like, who wakes up at that time? And I don't know anyone who does it. So I think, there's a lot of gurus and people say that this is the way you do it. And in the end, I think you just got to find what works for you. And I don't think there's any secret ingredient. I think it's just, good habits. When you don't feel like doing the work, do the work. When the days that you feel like doing the work, do a bit extra. And I think, I don't put my alarm on anymore. I just kind of wake up when I wake up. And if I've got then I do try and do some exercise in the morning. I do think that's important. And that's more just to wake the brain up and get your blood circulation going. So, but yeah, it is interesting. I mean, like you, I've read so many books on it, trying to work out what's the magic formula. And I hear a lot of people say, wake up at 4 or this time. I'm like, when do you guys sleep? Because in the end, if you're exerting that much energy mentally and physically, you need sleep. I don't care what anyone says. For me personally, I need to sleep at least 7 or 8 hours. So some are probably less. It just depends. But yeah, I don't think it's like a diet. No one diet works for everyone. It really depends what suits your needs, I think.
I totally agree, and I think you find your own way. I think there's certainly merit to routines and habits and setting up yourself. Knowing what you're trying to achieve that day.
Yeah.
Whether you need to do it at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. or 6 a.m., you will find your own way. But I feel, people do take it to the extreme, and some may have success with it, which is great. But perhaps it proves that we're all different and we all are motivated in a different way. Tell me, was there a pivotal moment that has now set you on the path to where you are now?
Yeah, look, I definitely. I know that, I was living in the Blue Mountains a few years ago and do lots of plein air painting, and then moved back to Sydney for probably about a year and a half. So I got pushed back into working within a studio. And then at that time, I discovered a few like American and European artists who are using spray paint. So I bought a few cans, started playing around with some colors, and again, it's the journey of business and life. I probably spent about a year experimenting with the cans and how to make it work. And then obviously, COVID hit, moved out of Sydney, back to the mountains into a bigger studio, bigger house. And then kind of really thought, went out driving a fair bit and really thought about why do I paint landscapes? What's my need to always want to be outside? And it really was the open space. And then at that time I realized the spray paint created this flat surface with strong colors that gave people space to breathe and kind of re-energize, I guess, I don't know, for me personally, re-energize myself through the bright colors. And then also with the flat surface, it wasn't busy. So your actual eyes can find breathing spaces between the trees, and the kinds of things I was putting into the pictures. So it is interesting, but I think, and for a long time I had these ideas of having more sparsity, less in the work, so more space to breathe, and it's very hard to let go of stuff that you're good at, you're comfortable doing, and to kind of go, I know I need to become uncomfortable to get to a better stage. And I think, you and I both like trekking, and I think it's something we've talked a lot about, is that we know the higher up you go, it becomes harder physically and mentally. The two things that you can't avoid, because your body's just crying out, going, I don't want to go higher. But then part of your brain goes, but if I go higher, I know the view will be a lot better. If I can focus on that end goal, how amazing that will be, then your physical part kind of becomes secondary. Although it's uncomfortable, you accept the fact that it's going to be uncomfortable until I get to a higher altitude or a better view. And I think like painting or any business, I think you have to accept that if you want to move forward. So anyway, going back to that point, I tried some ideas that I had in my head going around for about 6 months, and I thought, I've got nothing to lose now. COVID hit. I thought two major things were about to happen. About to lose my job. Thank God that didn't happen. And that the art world was just going to drop and no one's going to buy any more paintings. So I thought, I've nothing to lose. So I thought, just do the idea, try it out. And then I did a few works. We were predominantly mostly to spray paint and a few trees, quite sparse. And it just hit a chord with people. And so definitely that was a pivotal point for me personally.
You've you've hit there that it's a really interesting story and can be probably relayed and translated into a lot of other people's lives, where your circumstance changed. In other words, you moved back to the city and were restricted then on, you weren't able to go out into the bush, into the mountains as much as you used to. And I mean, I've been very fortunate that I've managed to get the stages of JK or Johnny K's art career on my wall. We've got the Cambodian god temples. Then we have the plein air, and now we have one of your beautiful new paintings. And the contrast is really quite different. But you can obviously say you were living in Asia when the Cambodian sort of inspiration took hold.
Yeah.
You plein air was pretty much came from your time in the mountains, I would suggest. And then obviously you were restricted, so you tried something new, whether it was going to fail or not. But it's obviously resonated because it's suddenly put you on a very different path to where you are now, which is fantastic. So I think the moral there is like, you just got to give it a try, right? Try something different, and see where it takes you. And if it fails, try something new, right? Keep that motivation going. So what do you think would have been your motivation had it not worked? Do you think art would still have been a big driving force, or would you have gone, I now need to look for something different? Or do you do art for yourself and hope that other people like it?
Oh, look, I think, art's something I personally just done for myself. And I think I think it's one of these things, you go through the school system, which is, it is what it is. But I think as you move out of that system, and you and I know a lot of people we speak to, you speak to a lot of people, mid-40s or, older or even slightly younger, and you go, what do you love doing? And most people will tell you, I love doing X, Y, Z, and they don't do it anymore. And the way I kind of see life, I go, if I die tomorrow, wouldn't I have rather spent or try to spend as much time doing something I absolutely love doing, rather than wasting that time or sacrificing that time? That's kind of how I kind of sit. So even with the painting, if it never took off, I still paint anyway or make art because I love doing it, and it gives me a lot of pleasure. And I think it's interesting, you meet people who don't really spend any time doing a hobby or something they love. And for me personally, I think, how sad is that? You have one life and you're not pursuing anything that makes your heart smile. I just think, how do you do that every day? I couldn't do that, So it is interesting from my perspective anyway. When I meet people who don't, I think, how I want to understand how you think to be okay with that.
Yeah, agree. It's I mean it's a wonderful story. I look at yours; it's very inspirational. And if I can go back quickly, with respect to motivating yourself to paint and motivating yourself to close a deal in sales, or getting up every morning to work the phones or work the network, as it were, to try and close deals. Are there two forms of motivation there, as far as you're concerned?
Um, that's a really good question. I think, and as I've gotten older, I've realized, and I think you hear a lot of people talk about have forming good habits. And the reality is, it's so true. If you create the right habits, um, and stick to those habits, and obviously adjust them and refine them as you grow, I think painting's the same thing. You say, I'm going to paint this much today, or focus on this. And sales is the same thing. I need to make this many calls and speak to this many people, and in the end, it's like we've always talked about. And I think both in business and the art, can I make a real impact? Because if the more people you can help, or the more people's lives you can have a positive impact on, the more successful you'll be. And even with clients in the corporate world, the more successful their programs are, and the more we can help them look good in front of their boss, or they help their business grow. The reality is you're going to be successful as a byproduct of helping them be successful, or by making that impact. And the art's the same thing. Can my paintings have a positive impact on people's everyday living experiences? And if I can do that and it makes people happy, then I go, that's something pretty cool. I'm very happy with that. So, but to get there, you're right. You just have to have good habits, and I don't think anyone can be successful without having a good chain of habits that they sort of are part of their life. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's interesting there is habits are such a big thing at the moment. You only have to look at the book charts, and it's James Clear's Atomic Habits is always up in the top 10 at the moment. But before the habits take place, it's the motivation to do something, to change something, that needs to come first. It's like whether it's losing weight or selling something or creating something like you do, that has to be inspirational first. There has to be some sort of inspiration. With your art, obviously, is it easier to get out of bed on a Monday morning, know you've got to paint something, or you want to paint something, or is it easy to get out of bed and go, I've now got to sell something? Which one works for you?
I'd say the painting. Yeah, the painting is definitely less pressure. But it's funny saying that, because I think I probably wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for my corporate experience, and because of having those very strong habits you have to grow a business and win business, new clients. I think if I didn't have that kind of mindset to do that, I don't think I would have the mindset to do the hours I do for painting, and the kind of, I guess, the commercial savviness that's required to sell work.
Yeah.
So I have to say the easy corporate has definitely helped. There's no way I could be where I am without that experience, if that makes sense.
And I guess you mentioned about time there. As you know, Motiveforce, we started the business as a fully remote company right from the outset. So the work from home scenario didn't affect us. Everyone was doing it anyway. How do you think the remote working culture of the business, and you're a people person, has helped you with your art and being able to develop that to the point now where you're now full time? What worked for you in terms of a remote culture?
Look, I'd say a few. You ask you some good questions, and I think that's a very good question, because the amount of time saved on not having to travel into an office. Also, the amount of stress sometimes, catching transport or driving into an office can be stressful. No office politics. And then I found it within Motiveforce, to be honest, it was incredible, because everyone knew that we're working remotely, that the main purpose of our business is to help people or companies. So whenever you needed help with anything, everyone was constantly there. Any phone call you needed, people would make time, which is a testament to the culture you've created, because it's allowed me as a salesperson to have that support to be able to be successful. So it does make a big difference. And I think the team culture, knowing that all of us, there's no one person that stands out. It's all of us collectively that makes stuff happen. So I think definitely, buying time, having more time, and less stress. Yeah, I know we've had some stressful years growing the business, but less stress of public transport, be stuck in the office when you've got a lot of proposals to do and people are coming to your desk. So I think all those things play a part, so that I can spend more time painting, and I'm not required to have too much wind down time from a stressful office environment, which I do think affects people a lot.
We could probably discuss around the world the merits of working from home and working in an office. And I think, there's a common agreement that hybrid would be the best thing. But we mentioned earlier about people setting up routines and getting up at 5 a.m. and doing this. But if I look at it from our point of view, from a Motorforce point of view, and you've highlighted it there, people get up at 5 a.m. because they need to buy some more time before they then start their journey into the office to then get stuck into the 9 to 5 routine and then back again. So they have to add that extra hour and get up earlier. When you're in a remote environment, you kind of gain that hour. So perhaps you only have to get up at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. because, you still work that normal working day.
Yeah.
But it's buying that extra time for yourself, which is important, which is something we just discussed earlier. Johnny K, look, that's the end of the podcast. Really do appreciate you spending your time. I know you're a very busy man now in that full-time art career, and we wish you all the very best of success. We'll put Johnny K's details in the show notes below for the podcast, so you can follow him. Please make sure you do follow him and see his journey as it's going. It's a very inspirational story, and we look forward to bringing you some more interesting and very motivational stories from others in the world on our Force of Motivation podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and we will speak to you soon.